Welcome to an in-depth look, a real deep dive into a story just packed with suspense, secrets, and some genuinely shocking moments. You've brought us a summary of Frida McFadden's, well, pretty gripping mystery novel, The Housemaid, and our mission today is really to unpack the most intriguing twists and turns. See how McFadden keeps you guessing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. What's really interesting here isn't just that it's a mystery plot, but how the story constantly blurs the lines. It keeps shifting your idea of who the victim is and, well, who the perpetrator might actually be. So we're going to navigate this kind of labyrinth of manipulation, unpack the character motivations, which are pretty surprising, and explore how what looks like a simple domestic job just spirals into this really complex game of cat and mouse. Psychological chess, almost. Get ready for a dive where nothing is really quite what it seems at first glance.
Okay, let's set the scene then. We start with Millie Calloway. She's our main character, stepping into a new situation. She's got a past, right? A criminal record.
Hmm.
And she's trying to get a fresh start as a live-in housekeeper. Her employers are the Winchesters, a wealthy family. And Nina Winchester, the wife, she seems friendly initially. What's the vibe?
It almost feels too good to be true, doesn't it? That initial setup. But yeah, that friendliness, it decays. Quickly,
Yeah.
Nina starts acting really erratically. Deceitful even. It just immediately creates this tension. And you've got the husband, Andrew, there too. He's in the house sort of trying to smooth things over between Nina and Millie, or so it appears. You get this feeling that something's really wrong underneath it all.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it doesn't take long for that facade to crack. Millie starts noticing things, maybe does a little digging. And what she finds out is, well, pretty disturbing. Turns out Nina was institutionalized before. What was the official story there? And how does Andrew kind of play into this part of the story?
Well, the reason given is really chilling. Apparently, she tried to harm herself and their baby daughter, Cecilia. So that's the backstory Millie uncovers. And this is where Andrew starts to seem more central. He's presented as, the calm one, trying to manage the situation between Nina and Millie. But then, and this is where it really takes a turn, Andrew and Millie, despite everything, they actually start an affair.
Right, the affair, that's a
Yeah.
huge development on its own. But then it gets discovered, and Nina drops this bombshell revelation that just flips the whole narrative. This is where McFadden, like you said, pulls the rug out. What's the truth, Nina reveals.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really clever. Nina basically confesses she hired Millie on purpose. She knew about Millie's past, about her being imprisoned for murder. She hired her as part of this incredibly elaborate scheme, her goal, to free herself and Cecilia from Andrew, because he was the one being abusive and controlling. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, a jaw-dropping moment. Suddenly, Nina isn't just this erratic woman. She's potentially a desperate victim fighting back.
Wow. Okay, so Nina herself was the victim of Andrew's abuse. And this whole housekeeper setup was her way out.
Exactly. The story goes that he'd forced her into a psychiatric hospital before, used a false diagnosis, probably after she found out about his own sadistic side. So her ultimate goal, the one she kept secret even from Enzo, who was supposedly helping her escape, her plan was for Millie to actually kill Andrew. It just completely changes how you see everything that happened before.
So now we're caught in this really twisted web. I mean, even after this massive reveal, Nina keeps manipulating things, right? She accuses Millie of stealing clothes, so she put a tracking app on her phone. Millie gets a weird warning call. It's like the games don't stop.
Not at all. It just escalates. Nina actually manages to get Millie locked up in the attic. But Millie, she's resilient. Even trapped up there, she starts figuring out her own plan, a plan against Andrew. Once she gets out, she actually researches how long someone can survive without food or water. She's preparing her own kind of retribution. And this is such a crucial point because it forces you, the reader, to constantly reassess. Like the book says, both Nina and Andrew have been playing these dangerous games. Manipulation, control, that line between who's the victim and who's the perpetrator gets incredibly blurry.
It's fascinating how the story keeps shifting that balance. And then there's Enzo, the groundskeeper, right?
Yeah.
His role adds another layer. He convinces Nina to check on Millie in the attic, saying something about Millie not suffering like his own sister did at Nina's hands. What does that tell us?
Oh, that complicates Nina massively, doesn't it? It suggests she's not purely a victim either. She's capable of causing harm herself. It shows Enzo has his own history, his own complex reasons tied up in all this. He's not just a simple helper. It really drives home how morally gray everyone is. It's definitely not just black and white, good versus evil here.
So, towards the end, Nina finds Andrew's body lifeless. And there's this moment of, maybe, guilt. She said she'll report it, take the blame. But even then, the story throws in more unsettling details. Like Andrew's mother, Evelyn.
Right, Evelyn. It's revealed she basically condoned her son's terrible behavior. nurtured her own brand of punishment, as the summary puts it. It really underscores that idea of abuse being cyclical, maybe even generational. Andrew's issues didn't just come from nowhere. But amidst all that darkness, Millie does get a sort of new beginning. She gets another housemaid job.
Yeah, and surprisingly, it's with Nina's recommendation to help a friend of Nina's whose husband is also abusive.
Exactly. Which leaves you wondering.
So, after going through all that, what's the takeaway? We've navigated this truly wild story. It constantly challenges how we see good and evil, how far someone might go for what they see as justice or maybe just revenge. It feels like a really vivid look at how deep trauma and the need for control can twist people and their relationships into something incredibly dark.
Absolutely. And connecting it maybe to a slightly bigger picture, McFadden uses this domestic thriller setup brilliantly. It's not just about the twists, it's how she makes you question your own assumptions constantly. About all those shades of gray, the desperate things people do when the normal systems fail them, and how easily our sympathy shifts depending on what piece of the puzzle we have at any given moment. Makes you think about how quick we are to judge, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And for you listening, this deep dive really highlights how layered human psychology is, even in fiction, how the effects of abuse ripple outwards. And as Millie moves on to this next job, stepping into another situation with an abusive husband, it leaves us with a final kind of provocative thought, doesn't it? Is this a chance for Millie to actually break a cycle, or is she just stepping into another tangled web, maybe even becoming the one pulling the strings this time? What does it really take to stop these patterns?